Yeah.
All right, so um, let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
do this. How you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm good. Give thanks. Yeah, I'm
It's
doing well.
always puts a smile on my face when I see you.
Well, give
Listen,
thanks. Yeah.
listen. I gotta admit, when I first saw FDM come on the Facebook page, it was, I don't know, probably a minute after Mark put it out there. I was confused and frustrated because I just thought, oh no. I mean, I got a lot of respect for Mark in a lot of ways, the way he stood up to the PLP. And anyway, it just took me off guard. I was like, oh no, not another branch moving off in the PLP. And then because I had this respect for him, I wanted to see what was going on, and I started to see the people coming behind it, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting group. And and then bang, all of a sudden, your face came up. And I was like, okay, well, this is a different situation now. So I have been cautiously optimistic, more so than any other party right now. Not just because you've gotten involved, but you guys have done quite a bit, even in just the short time that you've been promoting. I mean, you basically you got introduced rapidly through the snap election, but you've said more in 2 weeks than most parties have said, in my opinion, in almost a decade. And that's pricked my attention because I think, as you've said, and your answer to the question the other night on the news about politics and how you're not interested, you were never interested in it before, and you and I go back a ways to our time with the environmental activism scene with Best and Green Rock, and we were out there doing our thing. And I remember saying to you at least once, and to many other people many times, that if anything's going to happen in this island, it's going to be Eugene Dean that does it. So I was really happy to see you get involved. And I think for me right now, just as a little, just as a little way of saying it, I think that Bermuda should be lucky, should feel very lucky to have you working, because I know, just like myself, the last thing I want to do is get involved in politics. I've promised myself I would never do that, and I've always thought that we need to ensure we keep politicians as employees of the people and not profits. And we've been heading down a road where it seems like we're surrounded by profits all over the place. And anyway, that kind of got, when I started to see you move into this FDM role, I felt uplifted, because it's been a very long road and not much has changed since you and I were involved in the green movement. Or, well, you're still in it, I'm not in it much anymore, but not much has changed. In fact, I think it's gotten worse in politics since that time. And I remember talking to you many times about how frustrated we were that we seemed to be chasing our tails with issues that came up that were exacerbated by politics, as opposed to being solution-based, problem-solving kind of events that we were tackling. And it was almost like whack-a-mole in a sense. So again, it's nice to see you a part of this, and I hope to see more. But we got some questions. Like I said, we've got about 5 here. I don't think we'll get off the first one because it's such a big topic. And I'm just going to ask it, I guess. What's your take on politics, and running off of your comment the other night on the news, your impassioned show of not really wanting to get involved in politics? What pushed you over the edge ultimately? Specifically, what was it? Was it just a frustration level, and how do you see politics being run in the future?
Well, give thanks for, I guess, the vote of confidence and and support. Um, it's always encouraging because it's kind of like a bittersweet for me. This is because while it's very humbling to, I guess, receive broad-based support from the community, and have an opportunity to potentially serve in a leadership role, in reference to the direction of the country, or to represent, the people of Bermuda. Um, as you've already described, being this arena has required me to pay off my base. You know what I mean? Now, I've been somebody who's been very involved in the community all my life. And actually, years ago, I realized that really my life is for people, you know. One of my partners always makes a joke because I've been someone who's constantly put the interests of others before myself, and my partner will make the joke and say, yeah, well, family would be concerned about leaving an inheritance because they'd be thinking he'd just give it all to me.
Thank goodness we don't have much to give, right?
I have to laugh, but it's actually like, it's right what it's saying, you know what I mean? Because, sometimes I don't even understand it, like, in the sense that, I've always been around causes, and then that has just always been a priority for me, or community issues. And then I just work towards addressing it now. Social ills, environmental, whatever it is, I've been around, I guess, community initiatives like for my entire life, sports, all sorts of things. So anyway, what caused me to take this leap is that in reflection, all of my life experience has been around people complaining about not feeling represented. You know, people are just constantly looking for representation. If you think about it, right, let's just talk about the things that we've been involved with together. If we had somebody who we felt represented our interests at a leadership level, right, we wouldn't have had to do all those things that we would do. The organizations that, right, we were, and the organization I'm still a part of exists because of gaps, because of a lack of representation, Now, all my life has been a situation where it's like, it feels like if I don't do it, or if the people in my immediate circles or the people that I'm working with are not hands-on in getting pertinent things done, then it just doesn't get done. To the point where you just forget the fact that, and you just go about doing what you're doing because it's no real compliment, it's no real like working together. You try to assist the government with things and you're held off, in spite of the good work that you do in the community and all the accolades you get. And, and then if you get one opportunity to do something and you enjoy success, nobody follows up with you in terms of like, well, look, like, how did you do that? Now, these will be people who told you you couldn't accomplish what you just accomplished, but nobody comes back and says like, did you actually do that? And how can we actually build upon that? We see that you have relationships all in the community and, for example, like the gang violence, people would see that, I guess people like myself and my partners would have direct relationships with elements in the community that they would be afraid of. And they would be concerned about, right, young people disrespecting them and things of that nature. And we would be like, well, we don't have problems young people respecting us. We got a lot of respect from young people, and then people would tell us about what we can and can't do, and then we would do it. And then nobody talks to us afterwards. So anyway, it becomes very frustrating for us which makes it easy for us to relate to the frustration that we find in the community, you know? And then just thinking about all that, it's like all these experiences that I've had, where is it leading? What is it all for? You know, what's all the early mornings and the late nights and the tireless efforts and the rallies and the advocacy and all of these things that have been done. And then all of a sudden, you know, Mark, who's been a friend of mine since we were about 3 or 4 years old, we've been nursery school together, and we've been different primary schools, but both in Somerset, and we've been high school together. So Mark calls to say, look, you know about this snap election? He said, yeah, I see it, man. Here we go again, you know? And then he tells me that, look, I've been thinking about doing something, but I just need to meditate on it for the weekend, and then I'll get back to you. He says, but Gene, I'm gonna need you. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, here we go. Because it's never a convenient time for something like this, right? You know, and I'm thinking about,
you're talking about what, 2 months ago?
2 months ago, 3 weeks ago. This has all been a month. Everything that's happened, right? So Mark's not even in Bermuda. He's in Florida, calling me. So anyway, he says, before he hangs up the phone, it's like, Gene, I'm gonna need you, see, I'm serious. I say, yeah, Mark, I heard you. So, anyway, within a week, I'm getting invited to a meeting, which means it's on. And it's either you're gonna do it or you're not gonna do it, you know? And I guess from my experience, right, is no better opportunity than now. So here we are. And it's all happening. You know what I mean? And I am very concerned, personally, about having to deal with another 5 years, right? Because the trajectory has all been downhill, you know? And whilst they may expect to ride out this election off of perceived success of dealing with COVID-19. And I'm thankful that we're in a strong position in Bermuda as it relates to the management of it. It's all been downhill. The economy, we're in a situation where the pertinent issues to the country haven't been addressed. And it's not even that they just haven't been addressed during the last 3 years of this administration. They just haven't been addressed in years, because the issues that people bring up are issues that have existed for like 10, 15, 20 years. If we're honest about it, nobody's really addressed it. It's kind of like Western medicine, where you have an ailment and somebody's giving us symptoms. Nobody's actually looking at the root cause, you know? Now, you sit on the outside and you say, well, what is this from, right? Is it that the people in position, like, don't really understand what's going on? Or is it intentional? And it's really hard to determine sometimes, you know? To be honest with you, like, neither of the answers, right, are impressive. You're just trying to understand why, right, simple solutions are not being applied to the challenges that are right in front of us. So it's not happening. So once again in my life, I'm faced with a scenario where it appears that unless I get involved, things are just going to remain the same. And I'm too concerned about, right, my parents. I'm concerned, right? I have a child, right? I have 4 sisters who have children. You know, I have friends. And if we actually care about the future of this country, and we care about the future that we actually hand over to generations that are coming, because we're accountable for that. They're going to be looking at us and saying like, well, listen, I don't feel like hearing any excuses. Like, what did you do? What did you do? If you were going through this, like, what did you do? You know, here's an opportunity to do something. And
yeah, yeah.
so
I mean,
here we are. What's that?
let me just say real quick, we've got that stupid lag coming up again every minute or so you're talking.
Oh,
I don't
see
know if
it.
I don't know if it's coming up on my end or not, but let me just quickly open my door. Sometimes.
Right.
I don't know if that's gonna help.
So you're using Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah, I'm using Wi-Fi, but I don't know what it is. I
Yeah,
think it's something to do, I think it's something to do with Zoom, but apologies if this gets, when this gets released, if it is a lag, I'll maybe try to edit it, but I'm losing snippets of you, but it catches up. So anyway, yeah, I take all that. I take exactly what you're saying, Eugene, and I guess trying to figure out whether to me, and I want to ask you, the question carries on to, I heard, who was it that mentioned it in one of your videos, FDM videos? It was mentioning racial identity politics, and I've been beating the drum for about 2.5, 3 years now about the way that America, specifically over the last 6 months to a year, has really, with the situation with the buffoon in power over there, they've gone into identity politics mode, and they've got a left that's fractured into segments because the right is perpetuating a misinformation machine assisted by Russia and everything else. Much bigger issue, but I think Bermuda has been ahead of the curve with identity politics, and particularly racial identity politics, for about 20 years. And that's kind of the drum I've been beating to try and say, listen, until and this is what I found when I was in Best, and you were alongside me there in the green movement. The whack-a-mole effect of just trying to deal with issues was that you ran into a situation where politics and racial politics in general just played a part, and it was a never-ending battle. And I'm just wondering, do you have an objectionable opinion on racial identity politics, and what's your take on it, and how can that be stopped so that we can, because ultimately it seems as though what we've got is the easiest way to make politics work for people is to use the divide and conquer, us versus them mantra. And whatever country you're in, you either use religion, race, class, culture, whatever it is. And Bermuda just happens to have used race for its existence. And don't get me wrong, we have a very checkered past with race in Bermuda, and we need to fix those problems. But it seems like every time we try to, all of us, including me and you and everybody, as we're coming through this movement, 15 years ago, we're there, and we're doing things that are working together with the community. And it seems as though no matter how hard you try and fight, because politics gets labeled as, well, it's politics and all's fair in love and war and politics. I've never agreed with that, and I think it's stunted our growth, and it's stopped us from being able to do things in a more progressive, positive way, in a unified fashion. And it's created this deep division, or it's perpetuated a division, because there's no doubt Bermuda was divided throughout its history. But you and I's generation came up in a time where we knew and know what racism is, but yet it's still labeled and broad brushed as an entire collective that is somehow trying to hold back another segment of society. That's obviously not true. And that's where racial politics needs to be explained to some people, to really expose it for what it is, so that we can eventually move on to greater things. I think that we've got so many people like yourself and passionate Bermudians that are ready to make a real movement here and to do things that could be, and I said this to you, I remember saying this 2 years ago, things that could be the shining light for the world to see. We have a very small population and the opportunity to be a shining light. And we seem to be stuck in a perpetual cycle of prejudicial stereotyping in order to progress politically, as opposed to allowing people to move ahead in a unified fashion. So I just wanted to get your take, because I was very interested when I heard Gavin, it was Gavin who talked about the racial politics side of things. And I just wanted to get your opinion, because I think it's a huge thing. And I think it's the one thing that's actually stopped us for decades now from progressing. I want to get your view on that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's one of the main reasons that we exist, because the democracy here has become, well, I'll put it this way, the democracy here needs to mature. And elections are more about emotions, and style and tradition, rather than being about, right, actual platforms or visions or ideologies. It actually makes no difference. It's interesting, right? Mm. You would reach out to me in a complimentary way, my presence on the news last night or night before last. And yesterday afternoon, I would get a message to turn on the radio, Magic 102, because I'm the topic of discussion. So people are actually on the show saying that because I've never voted before, I shouldn't have the right to be in the election.
Really?
Because I ask people to vote for me if I've never voted for anyone else. Well, first of all, I haven't voted for anyone ever because I haven't identified anybody who I feel represents my interests. So what's the point of me voting for somebody who is not representing me? That's the whole point of voting, is representation.
That should be the answer to that question right there.
Simple, right? Now, the next thing is, right, then somebody proceeds to say how we need, and they're talking to the parent, we need to raise up our children to understand that they need to vote for the PLP. So I'm saying to myself, okay, so this person must have, right, the capacity, right, to fast forward into the future, right, to understand what's happening in the country at that time when these children are of age to vote, know who's in the PLP, understand what the ideology is, right, and know what strategies the person concerns. Because short of that, why are you voting for someone? You know what I mean? So what builds up this thing around tradition now? I understand that there's a lot of history, right, to racial issues. Nobody needs to tell me about that. I'm Black. I know that. Nobody's got to educate me about slavery or anything else. But how do we evolve from that? Right? When I look at all this stuff around about Black Lives Matter, why do we carry around this implied weakness? Like, why are we going around trying to force people to respect us? Like, what is that? I've never felt like I needed to force anybody to respect me. Actually, it makes no difference if somebody doesn't want to respect me because of the color of my skin or anything else. People might look at my hair and say, I got locks, I wrap my hair or whatever, and it really makes no difference. I know myself, and anything I achieve in life has to do with my capacity, not anybody else. And even if, say you don't respect me, Corey, even if some legislation gets passed or some movement or whatever that forces you to act like you like me, you still don't like me. So all this stuff is like superficial, but like we've been conditioned to carry around, right, this idea that, and so now let's get back to the whole race thing. So now we rally around superficial stuff like marches and parades and, oh, now we need to vote for PLP because PLP is our party of choice. Well, hold on, what is the PLP doing? I got asked on the news the other day, right, how I feel about PLP MPs calling FDM representatives sellouts. I'm saying, well, hold on. If the PLP, right, is for the organization that represents the interests of Black people and they're not doing that, then who's selling out? Not me. We exist because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So what's required, right, is healing. The challenge, though, right, is that the leadership doesn't want to bring healing because the main tool that's been used in politics, right, to draw interest and retain interest is race. And if you take race away, now you actually have to deliver. Now you actually have to have substance.
Yep.
And that's the challenge. Now, our existence in this election eliminates the race card.
Yep.
And now, so the PLP, and just because they tried all this stuff now, you know, they've taken social media posts that we've made, photoshopped it, run it out. So they're trying to like fabricate this alliance. Somehow the FDM has actually come out of the OBA. Now, if they're able to successfully convince people that that's a reality, now they can run the race card again because, you know, we're not real Black people now. You know, we're just token Blacks that are actually like out in front of white interests. So we could run the race card again. But that hasn't worked. So they're neutralized. Race is gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we look just, it's really a shame. You know, the other day I was talking to a neighbor, you know, somebody who's been in my neighborhood all my life, right? He coaches at the club that I played for as a child. And still today, he goes around to certain clubs on the island and people are looking at him like, what's he doing there? Because he's white. And it's just so tiring because it's so immature. And why are leaders inspiring, right, our lower selves? As leaders, we're supposed to be inspiring people to want to do better, to evolve, you know, to think more critically, to be more objective, to be open, to love more, right? To connect with and network, to work with people, to be better fathers and mothers and men and women and business people and community people and neighbors and things of that nature. Like we inspiring people, right, to go to the lower instincts and make decisions based off of emotion. And it's so sad. So it's like the leadership is holding the community hostage. And the leadership is actually getting in the way of our success because the environment they're creating is such that if I need to work with you to solve a problem in my family or mine get solved because I'm not going to work with you. And vice versa. You're going to feel, right, away. You're going to feel uncomfortable coming into my environment, even though you want to assist and you know you can assist.
Yeah.
But you're going to think about like all the negativity that's going to get thrown at you, even to suggest that you can help because somebody's going to say something to you like, oh, so what, you think you're better than me? Oh, so you think you could come in my community and fix problems now because you have me or whatever. So it's just, it's so sad. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much at the top of our agenda, right? My partners and I have had a mantra for years, which is unity in the community, worldwide, fighting with peace and not for it, you know? And
Absolutely.
so all of the events and initiatives that you've seen me involved with have all been around like bringing people together. And that's something that will continue. And so should the people of Bermuda see fit that someone like me is put in a position to lead in this country, then that's the type of energy that will be emanating from the government. That's what we represent. The
And
free
that's,
democratic movement is open and objective and embracing to everyone. Freedom is in the name.
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And we're actually come that standard. You know? So when you talk about honesty, integrity, and the golden rule, our color is gold because of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Very simple. We know about these simple things. Just
mm,
somehow selfishness gets in the way of us actually bringing those things into practice. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, and echoing that, I agree 1,000%. Just real quick, apologies to people that are watching this. It's still got the lag, and you may be missing some of what Eugene's saying, but hopefully not much. And Eugene, like I said to you, this initial topic I think is the crux of the situation. It's what stunts our growth in every direction. And if we can defeat that mindset of needing to push people into an emotive stance on issues that need a collective, cohesive, um, critical thinking mindset, I think we could be the pillar of the planet in a lot of ways. That's a little hyperbolic, but I mean, my point is we need to continue this conversation. And I'm aware of the time. You've got another meeting to go to for Green Rock. I think you said it at 6 o'clock. Is it an electronic meeting or is it you got to hop on your bike?
But that's been postponed, so it's fine. And even so, I would have been doing it online, you know. So,
Okay. Okay.
so it's fine. So we can talk. But it's no rush at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, apologies because I don't know what's happening with this Zoom. I tried to check it out. It's something to do with the cache, but I hope people aren't missing much. It's kind of like a 2-second delay, but I've been noticing it seems to be okay. Are you getting the delay on your end, Eugene, from me?
Yeah, I'm getting it. You delay, but I don't miss what you're saying. It just pauses a second and then it comes out. You know, so it's fine. It's
So
not missing.
yeah, I mean, I want to get into some of the things that are to do with other topics because I mean, every kind of 12 hours is a new plan that you guys have got. You're touching on collective unity. You're touching on I saw something come out on cannabis today. That's further down the list to discuss. I kind of would like to maybe pick up. Well, if we can continue the conversation on race, I am curious to figure out how. Obviously, it's going to be a challenge for the FDM, let alone the OBA, getting the PLP or taking over the government. Let's put it that way. I mean, I hope it does happen. I can see seats being taken, but it's such a vast split now that it's a pretty big challenge with such a short period of time. But going back to the racial identity politics that's being played out, how would you first change that? Because I've always been of the mindset, I think I mentioned this 2 years ago as well, that some of the only way, or the only way really to move forward is to actually expose it, discuss it, understand it, and remove it. And this conversation alone, I think, is a good. I think a lot of people in the community are looking to try and figure out that aspect of the situation first, so that all else can be moved forward, which is essentially what you just said. How do you or FDM go about fixing that? I mean, if you get in and get 6, 7 seats, which I hope you do, great, or win, how would you fix that if you got in to a situation where you had some seats and some traction
Well,
within government?
well, you address that in your everyday walk. You know, so for example, You know, I'm, I guess, fortunate enough as a result of the involvement I've had all throughout the community that, you know, I'm not aware of anywhere on the island that I'm unable to go. You know, I pretty much everywhere I go, you know what I mean? Whether it's, you know, within in the streets, around gangs, you know, around business people, in the third sector, around non-profit organizations, in the sports arena, you know what I mean? Right? Around, right, I guess, yeah, and in the third sector, in the donor community, you know, where you have like really wealthy people or business people or things of that nature. Because the way I carry myself, it's not threatening to anyone. I'm not, you know, and I have no interest in threatening anyone, you know, and I guess I've learned the importance of listening, understanding, you know, and as a result, I'm able to relate to people. So I don't know that you've ever felt uncomfortable around me or vice versa. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's all about leadership. So Mandela, unfortunately, was locked up for over 20 something years. So by the time he got in a position of leadership, he was so old that he wasn't really able to stay there for a very long time. But like from the moment Mandela stepped in a position of leadership, there was a shift because of how he conducted himself and how he led and the example that he set. So the people who were following him because they had utmost respect for him, even when he went down with, they followed because they trusted him. And that's the essence of leadership. If you trust me, or put it this way, if I trust you, and we're going into an area, and I'm like, Corey, hey, look, you sure about this? And you're like, Gene, it's cool. I'm got this. I'm saying, Corey, I'm only doing this because it's you, you know. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And you're like, it's cool. And then we go through. Yeah, it's all trust. But if the trust is not there, then I'm not coming down that road. I'm not going down the road with you, Corey. I'm not.
But how do you think? I mean, as a part of one of your platform kind of agenda items, understanding that this is such an important topic to try to have the conversation or a conversation amongst many conversations that need to follow it.
Right.
Do you see a way that the FDM would introduce kind of more public consultation, trying to bring this out in the open, discuss the abuse that's been pushed on people to think in certain ways about certain segments of society? Again, understanding that the issues that need to be addressed to ensure equality remains a pillar of the community and an important aspect. How do you do it? Because without that step, how do you make the other steps? How do you make sure that that exposure happens?
Well, well, you're right, right? Because what you're defining is racial issue, right? Runs throughout everything. So really, any and everything that we do is going to have to be done understanding that we're doing it one racial issues. So our policies will be non-partial. Our policies are fair. So the way that we conduct ourselves, the way that we engage with the community, when people start to see, well, hold on, okay, so this is just fair. So there's no real hidden agenda in here. There's no underlying current that suggests that, you know, if I'm from this part of the community or that part of the community, or I'm wealthy, you know, or I'm struggling financially, every time that I engage with this government, I feel respected. You know, that would be it. No, just some of our policies are going to bring up, it's going to force forums because people are going to have questions. You know, the Black community in particular, because they're going to be like, so why all of a sudden, right, you're being so nice to white people? Like, what's your problem? That type of thing. Because this is the mindset. And I could say this because it's my people. You know, I remember one of my partners said to somebody in a meeting, he said, look, if you call a Black man an idiot, you're a racist, right? If I call him an idiot, that's what he is. I could talk about my people like that. And I know because the mentality is ingrained, right? And again, it's holding us all back. So we're gonna end up in a lot. There will be meetings, not like you and Bron's big conversation, because all he did was do that to fan the flames of racism. He made it worse. There was no healing element in that, nothing. You know what I mean? All he did was use that initiative to keep the country divided. You know, so yes, I'm sure, right? We will have forums, conversations, all sorts of things will come up. But I guess what I'm saying is that the key component is going to be around how we actually conduct ourselves in the position of leadership.